Hello and welcome. This is Zdeněk Němec talking about autonomous APIs and how we can work on what matters and not spending too much time with APIs, leaving the rest for our programs. So as I said, my name is Zdeněk Němec. I'm also known as Z, and I'm an API expert. I'm a founder and CTO of Superface.ai, and I've been working in the API space for over a decade actually. I started my journey on APIs with Apiary. Apiary was the first API design platform. I myself authored API Blueprint, one of the description format for APIs, and we pioneered API first, API is your product, do API design first, and all these things that are today a norm. Apiary has been acquired by Oracle 5 years ago, and this is when I ended up starting my consulting firm, consulting company called Good API, and we work with the largest organizations, largest enterprises on this planet on their API strategy, how to execute their APIs and guide them through API journey. Now, throughout the years, I've seen the problems with APIs firsthand from both sides of the trenches, from the business, from the organizational standpoint, but also from the engineering, of course, that's very important. And it repeats, doesn't matter what industry you are in, whether it's Adidas, whether it's Deutsche Post DHL, whether it's a big bank or biggest airlines or biggest automotive, the problems remains to be the same. And this is why I have started Superface, and this is why I'm on the journey to change how we are connecting our systems together. So let's talk about APIs here. APIs are connecting the worlds. You know firsthand that everything digital is now talking to some other systems. We are, living in the web of applications and services talking to services. And as a matter of fact, the need for APIs grew with the pandemic. There was this new push for digital transformation, acceleration of digitalization, and what was not possible before COVID is now the norm. So companies are pushing for more integrations, for more APIs, and as a matter of fact, over 80% of companies are claiming that they will need more APIs, they'll need more integrations. The numbers on this sheet will basically comment on what was reported by UiPath on their integration report, but also by Postman, a popular developer tool on APIs. So these are some numbers that I found actually fascinating. One of them, the first of them, is that for an average SaaS company, it might take 700 days to develop their API integrations. That's a lot of time. The largest SaaS applications are actually having thousands, or even over 7,000 of API integration to be built, and that's a lot of work. That's a significant effort on the engineering to integrate all the systems. Now, we know it takes a lot of time. We know it's very expensive, and many companies depend actually on the number of integrations. The next very interesting number is that if you want to provide API, if you are on the provider side, if you want to provide an API, you are easily looking at $200,000 every year. If you want to have a Stripey-like quality API documentation, developer program, developer experience, and marketing, then you really need to prepare a lot of knowledge and a lot of investment into your API program. So providing API is equally as costly as consuming APIs. Now, last number I want to actually comment on is the developer's effort. Now, from the recent Postman survey, over 49% of respondents claims that their company spends over 50% of their development effort on APIs. Companies spending over half of the time of their developers on either providing and integrating APIs. That's a significant portion of the time. That's a significant portion of the organizations. This is the state where we got. Now you need to ask the question: why is it? What are the challenges? Why it takes so much time, so much money to build APIs and to provide APIs? And it all starts with business and organizational alignment. That's something I learned over the years one of the biggest hurdles. You have business people in the organization, they are good at what they are doing. You have obviously engineering in the organization, and they are of course as well good at what they are doing. But the challenge with APIs is that this actually mixing both the business and the technology together. You are now delivering business capabilities via APIs, and this is where organization needs to be aligned, where business people needs to understand what's going on with the engineering. Engineering needs to understand what's going on with the business to work together to deliver their capabilities digitally. Next, the evergreen of every API is still API documentation. It's still unresolved issue, very painful issue, even a decade in. API documentation still is a problem, and it has to do with the fact that API, one single API, has actually at least three different views when you are publicizing it and when somebody is connecting to that API. So there's APIs deployed. So as you develop it and deploy it and publish it somewhere, there is a view on that very same API through its documentation. So API is documented. And then final view is when somebody comes in and integrates your API, that's API is consumed. And we are talking about one API here, and we need to basically have the deployment state, the documentation, and as consumed state in sync. That's why we are gluing our system together. That's why we are dancing around documentation and trying it, to keep it desperately, to keep documentation and the clients and the APIs deployed at the same. A lot of work here. And when we talk about the documentation, it's obviously next steps is the clusters, the API developer hubs, the developer portals, the catalogs. They are important with the organization. Organizations are learning that they need to have these central catalogs, places where you can find the capabilities, internal capabilities, maybe external, maybe partner capabilities of the organizations. And there is still a problem with these. This is unresolved issue of how do you keep these catalogs up to date, how do you get all the capabilities of an organization into these catalogs so everybody can find it. API design, still a big hurdle. If you want to design a proper hypermedia HTTP REST API, then you need to have almost a degree and understanding what it really means, how HTTP protocol works and all that. So you need a lot of determination and dedication to APIs in order to be good at API design. So while we are seeing a good API designers, it's not that common, and people very often just use a framework, throw some annotation in the code, and generate the code generate the documentation from the code instead of designing first and then implementing it with their API framework. Too many microservices, obviously the complexity is growing, explosion of microservices is bringing more and more APIs, more and more API documentation, more and more demand on API catalogs and API design. So that's, again, another thing contributing to the challenges, as well as securing APIs. Securing APIs is still a big task. It's quite important, and we seen a very custom authentication. And not only that, but even obtaining access might be a problem. Very often, large corporations might have a great API design, even great API documentation, but then if you want to use that API, you need to meet their sales team, go for lunch, and then eventually 2 weeks later, sign some papers, and 2 weeks later, you might get a PDF with keys. So that's still a big hurdle in connecting APIs. And finally, of course, companies evolve as teams do. So people who create an API or created an integration might leave the company, and that's bringing, again, another pressure point on APIs, on API documentation. So if we actually look at this, what we are doing with APIs, essentially we are gluing our systems together. We are doing manually this plumbing of a server and client. You have somebody designing that API only to implement it, only to test it when the implementation is done. And then superhero has to come and do a documentation for that API. I still believe in unicorns. I'm very thankful for these people who love to write a good, high quality documentation. It's tremendous importance of having such a work within the team. Only for somebody to come, take all this, publish it, and write SDK, and preferably in 6, 7, 8 languages, right? So you write the code for your API that you've just tested, published, and documented. And because you want the best developer experience, you spend a lot of time of building SDKs in several languages for your users. So your users can come, find your API, Google search, word of mouth, internal catalog, whatever it is, somebody needs to come and find it to try to test it. Hey, is it delivering what I want? Is it delivering what are my cases for use with this API? Then again, as I mentioned, trying to obtain the access, trying to purchase or get the keys to that APIs would be the next steps, so you can start implementation. So you can start actually wiring the API to your code, test it, pack it, and maintain it forever. So this is just a fraction. This is not complete enumeration of what's going on connecting us to systems, but you can see there is a lot of people, there is a lot of going on in order to connect two pieces of software together. And I can argue here that we can actually leave this to our software, because the services, applications can connect autonomously without us laying down the wires. Because autonomy is the ultimate answer to a central management, to manual wiring, and to having this upfront knowledge of what API is like and how do I connect. Now, for this to work, you have to have an autonomous self-driving client that has no notion of APIs, it is calling. It has no hard-coded API calls in it. And basically, the way this works, API client decides at the runtime what API to connect and how to connect in order to do the connection. So it might work like this. So on one hand, you have an API and registry for a discoverability. That API declares to the registry, I'm here, this is how client connect, okay? And then a client comes to that registry and asks, hey, registry, what is available? What are the capabilities available around me? The registry gives a client the answer, clients pick an API, and then the registry tells the client how to connect at the runtime. This is all happening on the runtime. That's the important thing here. And the client then can directly talk to that API based on the information retrieved at the runtime on how to connect. Looking a little bit more in depth into the self-driving client, again, it has no notion of an API. There is nothing hard-coded from that API in the client, unlike the norm today. The client discovers and integrates APIs at the runtime, and this is all possible thanks to application profile. So what is application profile? An application profile is a set of business cases and their descriptions, including data models. It has absolutely zero assumption of an API implementation. It really describes the use cases that the client application needs. One example could be a weather reader. Okay, a weather reader profile might have some use cases like get me the current weather in a city or give me a forecast for a city, right? Those might be, let's say, two use cases in our hypothetical weather reader profile. They basically describes what the application needs and what is the data model of it, but it doesn't assume anything, whether it's implemented by this provider, that provider, REST, GraphQL, whatever it is, that's not there. It's really describing only the application needs and the application use cases, okay? Now, next important thing here is the client is programmed for this profile and not for an API. So you program your application for check weather in Paris. You don't program your application for get from this URL, this query parameters, this JSON. That's no longer in your application. It never should be, actually. So again, you program for a profile, not for an API, okay? And an application can, of course, compose, because we are on the Composability Summit, from multiple profiles. It might have multiple profiles that it needs to be fulfilled in order for the application to work. So another example could be, let's say, CRM CRUD profile to create, read, update, delete users. It might be a send text message profile to send SMS and maybe retrieve SMS status. So you might compose your application from multiple profiles, and these are declaring the use cases that your application needs in order to work. Now, on the other side, there is an autonomous service or autonomous API, if you will, that declares the profiles it supports Registers and the registry. The registration can be direct, so the application, the API, the service can register itself, or somebody can register the service on their behalf and provides the map. This is important. This is the integration clue. This is the instructions how to make API calls to fulfill a profile in the registry. So let's say we have a CRM service, a CRM backend, right? An API. And it has a map to a CRM reader profile. So you have a CRM reader profile, that's application profile as we discussed, and the CRM service provides a map to its API and puts it into a registry. Now, if the API changes, technically, the capabilities would be still there. You can migrate from REST to GraphQL if you want. You just change the map because the profile doesn't need to change as long as the use cases are still covered. And you just deploy or register, update the registry with a new map here, and everything still keeps working, right? And so this goes from the service into the registry. And of course, one service, one API might support multiple and should support multiple profiles with multiple maps. So it might be CRM CRUD profile, CRM reader profile, CRM admin profile, whatever that the service can fulfill. It might actually declare, hey, I'm here. This is the profile I fulfill, and this is the map how you do it with my API. Now, the important thing here is these information are fetched by the client at the runtime to resolve the API calls. So the full picture is like this. Your API tells the registry what profiles it supports. Your API also supplies the map for the profiles. So this is how you do it with my API at this point in time. API changes, you provide a new map, okay? The client goes to the registry and asks the registry, hey, who are the providers for my profile? And the registry will reply, these services might have the answer for you, okay? The client decides, and this might be a business decision, this might be based on availability, on the cost, whatever it is. It might be a technical decision on the response time, geographical, regulatory, whatever it is. So the client decides which of the available providers for a profile, very often it might be just one provider, it wants to use. Tells the registry, hey, I want to use this and that service for this profile, and registry will supply the map to that client. Client then takes the map and calls the API directly without any middleman. So this is the full picture of autonomous services and autonomous applications. Now, when you start thinking about this concept, you might start to be realizing that APIs are actually not in the silos. There might be multiple APIs within the registries, essentially creating a context for your applications to be running. And when you think about and creating API landscapes, and when you think about API landscapes, it's really a boundary within the profile, application profile is resolved. So let's have another example here. Let's have an application for controlling air condition, okay? Air condition app, okay? This is a client, you program it, it declares it needs the air condition controller profile, and you put it in a landscape, in your home landscape. You might have some IoT server providing a capability of controlling your AC at home. But then in the office, there might be a very different service, very different provider of air conditioning, very different manufacturer of the actual device. And of course, if you travel in a hotel, in a car, somewhere else, there might be another landscape with air conditioning. And this application just declares, I need air condition profile, right? And you put it in this landscape, in that landscape, in hotel landscape, it will still work, regardless of what is the actual provider, what is the implementation of it, whether they use this API design or that API style. So this would be a one landscape. Of course, within your organization, you might have a lot of services available, and your client might discover autonomously what is available, what are the providers of capabilities within, let's say, Acme Corporation landscape. Now, there is a global landscape, thus creating, a sort of mesh of landscapes. The global landscape where you have publicly available capabilities, like payments, like sending text messages, geocoding, whatever it is really available on the public internet, the public APIs, right? And you might configure the registries within your organization to contain certain capabilities from the global landscape. So next time your client asks, within your corporation, within your corporation landscape, hey, is there a provider for inventory? Of course there is. And then it asks, is there a provider for sending text messages? And there might be no provider within the ACMA, within your corporation, but there might be one in a global one. So you can configure these registries, again, essentially creating meshes of registries. And this, of course, works with partners. So another company, another organization might have some services that that are interest of you, and the company is partnering with you, and so you can configure the registries to work together to provide some of the capabilities of partner, make them accessible within your landscape, within your client settings. Hence, this will basically create a decentralized mesh of capabilities where your client might be able to navigate. What is the impact? Well, I would say the impact is quite profound on many aspects of the organization. Technical and organizational one are the biggest areas of the impact. Now, the technical would be quite straightforward, right? You now need only a profile documentation. You don't need API documentation for most part, unless you need to debug the technicalities. This is the separation of what and how. That's also the problem with APIs today. They are mixing the business value they are offering with the technicalities, how it is implemented. Now, with autonomous APIs, this is not needed. You need to describe and document the profiles. That's the contract. The technicalities of how it is implemented can be and are actually figured out by self-driving applications, self-driving clients. So that essentially means that the API design is secondary, right? It's an implementational detail. Unless today, if you have multiple APIs, you need to have a very good API design and consistent design between every API. Otherwise, the developer experience will be very bad. So you need to mandate everybody in the company to use REST or GraphQL or this and that and design the resources like this, because jumping between different styles is a headache. Now, this is no longer the case with the autonomous APIs, because you need the profiles, and one team can use REST, the other team can use GraphQL, the third team can use gRPC or whatever. So again, API design and the need of it is secondary. It's still important for technical aspects of an API, but not so for developer experience element of the game. So this pattern also solves the versioning and evolution. With autonomous APIs, the service is decoupled from application, and that's enabling evolution. As long as the service is still providing the capability, it doesn't matter you rename the URL or you change the JSON or you went again, as I said, from REST to GraphQL. If it still provides the capability, it just updates the map in the registry, and your users, your consumers, have uninterrupted service. This is, of course, implying a massive code-based reduction. On the server, you don't need to drag all versions around. On the client, you have simply no API calls in your client, so you don't need to hard code those in your client. This will actually lead into robust and resilient applications, because they can deal with changes. They are more robust than they were ever before. And if API changes, you changes the map and it's fixed for all the applications. So essentially bringing irreducible integrations that are the glue of the internet. Organizational impacts may be even bigger. The API discovery, visibility, and governance is solved. The word of mouth is no longer needed. Hey, do we have an API for this? Do we have an API for that? Can I do this and that? That's no longer a question. You just tap on the catalog. You just tap on the registry, which is always up to date, so it's not a stalled catalog. And also, you have for the first time, an unparalleled visibility into your dependencies. That's what companies very often don't know. If I go to large corporation and ask how many of your applications and services are depending on a Google Maps API, very often nobody knows, right? You want to have insights into your dependencies. You want to know what's the liability, what is the dependency change of whatever you are doing and building. Next, organizational alignment. This is a platform where you can talk business and separate it from the tech. You clearly declare what are your business capabilities, internal or external, and this is where everybody can get aligned. You no longer need to explain to business people REST or GraphQL. That's, again, important, but from the standpoint, it's just an implementational detail. leading to the speed of development. You don't need to learn how to call this API, how to call that API. You need to learn and understand the use cases. You need to understand your domain, but you don't need to be understanding how somebody came with a fancy authentication scheme or I don't know, JSON formatting and naming. Bringing me to ease of publication. That's another big hurdle. We talk about it, how much it costs to publish an API. So ease of publication, when you can just publish your capability in a high quality with superb developer experience, not spending $200,000 a year on a publication. That's something that's definitely coming with autonomous APIs, leading into unparalleled composability. This APIs are a remix culture, right? APIs enables us to take this from there, that from there, mix it together, compose it together, create new things that nobody created before. And this is taking it to the next level. And finally, this is breaking a technical vendor logs. Today, API providers, especially in the public space, know that if you integrate with them, you are likely to stick with them. Because what? Because you spend so much time and effort integrating with these APIs. So on one hand, they want you, provide the best developer experience so you connect in no time. On the other hand, they want you to be locked to them, so you don't want to go somewhere else. This approach, autonomous APIs are breaking the technical logs. If there is a reason for a business log, nobody else is providing the capability, they have the best data in this space, or simply your customers want you to use this provider, then there is still a log. But technicalities are out of the question. If you are unhappy business-wise with a provider, you can change it, in the blink of an eye. So where does this take us? What would be the future, maybe 10 years, 20 years from now? Well, I would argue that the future is on our software's hand, okay? One thing to look at it, what autonomous systems will enable is truly digital business making, a digital B2B, where your software will be asking, okay, or given task, fulfill the shipment of 6 pallets from here to there, right? That's something that your software will be able to do. Compare offers for this many gallons of a crude oil. That's another example. So essentially, you will be giving a task to your software, and it will be going out and figure out what are the offers, how who can fulfill your demand, or get the goods that you are wanting or services. Thus, essentially creating this decentralized, and I don't mean a crypto here, a digital decentralized marketplace of capabilities, and push for the further commoditization, because the technical vendor logs will be down, and your software will be able to go out and basically do machine trading. What will be the impact on business making if your software will be able to go out and hunt for the best deals, and compare thousands and thousands of offers within a second, right? So tremendous impact, and then even do a purchase on your behalf. With your identity, with your organization identity, it might do a purchase. What would be the impact on how we make the business, right? Where are the business lunches? I don't know. And when you take this even further, you need to start thinking about, okay, there will be some sort of marketing for this kind of machines. If machine can go out, figure out the best deals, enter a contract and invoke that fulfillment of the contract, then you need to start thinking about, okay, how people will be gaming these registries in order for this and that provider, to be more appealing to our software. So this is a funny train of thoughts where the future might go. Something maybe a little bit closer than digital business making is intelligent software. Today, if I ask Siri, hey, is my car locked? Siri says, sorry, I can tell if the car is locked. And this is really making me very unhappy, because clearly NLP, natural language processing, is working. We have a machine algorithms, and Siri can distill my question into intent and realizing, oh, this guy is asking whether his car is locked. Well, guess what? I cannot answer, because nobody came and nobody did this manual plumbing, manual wiring. Even though, let's say, Mercedes-Benz and other manufacturers have a very nice APIs for vehicle lock status, Siri assistant is not able to connect to these unless the developers and all these people come together and wire it together, hook it up together, right? So we can, with autonomous systems, we can build software that will take NLP, figure out the intent as it's already doing, distill the profile from it, discover the providers, and do the autonomous integration. our software will be able to, do these things. So we'll get the autonomous software. We'll be able to build this autonomous application, navigating through the landscape of capabilities that we as a mankind have, leading to the ultimate pinnacle, the reasoning AI. So no machine learning, but I cannot see how we will have a reasoning AI without the software being able to connect to our services, to our capabilities autonomously. Thank you very much for listening. If you are interested in autonomous APIs, please let's get in touch. My name is Zdeněk. I'm a ZDNE at Twitter. I'm a founder of Superface AI. If you want to play with something, we have an open source framework for autonomous APIs at github.com/superfaceai. Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. I really hope you got some value from that. And by the way, if you want more where that came from, we want to invite you to be a part of our community. Go to composability.dev and register today. If you've already registered, you know what I'm talking about. And by the way, if you're on Twitter at all, go to JavaScript Jam and follow us. Why? Because every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we go live. Yeah, live on Twitter Spaces. And you can join us and be with us there while we're live. Heck yeah. You know what? And it doesn't matter if you're a beginner or you've been doing this forever. We love everybody being involved. We bring so many people up to the stage. We have so many great conversations. We want you to be a part of it. All right.